superfluous to gameplay, but I think when we get graphical fidelity that is very similar from where you're clearly killing someone who belongs to a particular ideology, not only the way they look, but they've got 44 hertz CD quality sound coming out of their mouth, screaming Islamic statements at you. You need to really connect to that and understand, yeah, okay, there's a little bit more going on here than me just killing things. I think that's pretty much... Oh, Christian, I quoted you here. There was an example back there that I just wanted to briefly mention. I don't know the title of this game. Again, it's just one that I've heard and I thought it was fantastic. A mod that is basically coastal guard, right? And you patrol international waters, stopping illegal immigrants coming into the country. From all accounts, the most boring job in the world because it very rarely occurs, right? But you have to have someone there. So they created a mod that models that experience. So you log in, and they stop you from quitting. The game actually runs for like an 8-hour shift of just you going on the water. Now you can do laps and stuff like that. Now I wouldn't want to play it because generally in 8 hours I can get a lot of work done. But I think the idea is brilliant. It's commentary upon, it certainly has a political dimension as to, why do we need to even guard these waters if that is the frequency that these people come across. So obviously something below the surface. And the best part about this is how quick it would be to make. And I think that's the other fantastic dimension of serious games, is that they're like music. You can just pump it out. You get an idea, sit down, lay it down a few riffs, it's out, publish it. Whereas a normal AAA title, 3-4 years of your life. So serious games have the ability to talk very quickly to people. 9/11, I don't think took very long at all. So I'll end there because I do want to end with Christian's quote. Frustrating game, you'd be called a bastard if you made someone play it, but if you put it in an art gallery, they think you're a genius. Thank you, Christian.
I'd like to introduce you to our next speaker, Justin Halliday. Justin was the producer on Escape from Woomera, possibly Australia's most famous serious game. He's actually a game producer with over 15 years industry experience, and during this time he worked as a designer and a producer on a number of titles, including Shadowrun, True Lies, KKND, KKND 2, Crossfire, Le Mans 24 Hours, Grand Prix Challenge, Transformers, Heroes of the Pacific, AFL 2006, Lucinda Green's Equestrian Challenge, and AFL 2007. So it's a very comprehensive suite of Australian games there. Justin currently works as senior producer at IR Gurus in Melbourne. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Unlike, I think, Damian's talk, which was largely theoretical, I guess, I'm going to talk a bit more about some actual examples of games that people have been making that are serious games and have some different facets to them. And, as the question has been posed, can they make a difference? And hopefully some of these examples have made a difference and have made people think more about the world they live in. Oops. Just start with the actual first slide. The games that I'm talking about today can be broken into three main categories. The first is educational. These are games that teach you, something about what's going on in the world. The second is ideological. These are games that attempt somehow to change the way you think about your world and your ideology. And the third are games that are activism. These are games where the makers of them attempt to raise an issue that you may or may not be aware of and raise your understanding of that issue and potentially change your mind about the issue. And we'll have examples from each of these areas as we go through. The first one here is games as education. I've actually kind of cribbed three of these games from a company called Persuasive Games, who are making small flash-based games at the moment. And they've run into a bit of kind of media storm lately. One of the guys was on the Colbert Report, which I think mentioned earlier as one of the great homes for news these days. But he was on there defending serious games, and they actually make games for the New York Times as what are called editorial games. These are games where the newspaper will have an editorial about a particular issue, and they'll present a game that illustrates that issue. The first one of these that we're going to look at, though, the first educational game, is about politics. And that game is called the redistricting game. And this is a game about the most boring thing you could ever imagine, which is the redistribution of electorates, right? So the idea of this game is simply that you play an electoral officer, and your job in the game is to redistribute populations to attain certain goals. Now, in an electoral system, these electoral officers, usually if they're working with a party, their goal is to redirect people into districts so that those districts will vote one way or another. This game here, you are a redistricting consultant. You work for the Democratic Party, so your job is to redistribute people so that the Democrats win more seats. The trick to this one is that the Democratic Party actually controls the legislature. So what that means is that they have control, they can push through the different distribution of our people, and they can have more seats in the parliament. So we're going to look quickly here. There are 4 districts here, and you can see there's already a gerrymander at work in this. You guys all know what a gerrymander is? I'm assuming you do. Okay. A gerrymander is a distribution of population that is designed to put one party or keep one party in power. You can see here that the gerrymander is this large kind of area down the bottom where there's a strange anomaly in the distribution of people. What you do in this game is, as you can see, there are 4 sitting members. Each of them has a population that their seat corresponds to. And what you need to do is change the shape of their seats so that they still have about the same population, but what you want to do is change the population representation so that one or the other parties wins each of the seats. And as you can see, some of them, next to their icons, they have a Republican or a Democrat percentage. And what you want to do is you want to load up all of the Republicans into a safe Republican seat, and then in one of the other Democratic seats, for example, if you're a Democrat, you want to make it so that there are more Democrats in there and they win the extra seat. So this is an example of a game that is designed to raise people's awareness of a process that goes on all the time, which is the redistribution of electoral seats. And I actually sat down and started playing this game and ended up playing for about an hour or two because it's strangely compelling, trying to puzzle through how to put population in places that will attain the goals that you have set out. And sometimes you're doing a partisan gerrymander like this, where you're trying to win a seat off the other people. In other stages of the game, you're trying to do a bipartisan gerrymander, where you're trying to actually have both parties keep their seats, but you need to redistribute along other lines, such as having 70%, having a certain percentage of an ethnic minority represented in each seat. So the actual goals of the gerrymander, of the redistribution, become more difficult each time. So that's probably a game about the most boring thing you could imagine. This game here, which is just a quick little flash game, is called Oil God. This, again, is by Persuasive Games. It isn't an editorial game, but it's educational. You, in the game, act as a god. You're the oil god. And your goal in the game is to send the price of oil to double its previous level. And what you do in this game is you do that by carrying out acts of God on the populations of certain countries. And so on the left you can see all the different acts you can carry out. I think the first one is a change of government, the second one is something else. Third one is a war, so you can set a country to be at war with another country. The fourth one here is a civil war. You can set it to be at war within itself. And up the top right is your goal of how the price of oil that you have to get to pass the level. And so you just sit there and you descend these wars on each of the country, and floods and famines and all sorts of things, until the price gets up to that theoretical level, and then you go on to the next level, which is slightly more difficult. Which, again, this is an educational game which is teaching people about the economics of oil production and why the price of oil goes up and down all the time in the world. The next one here we're looking at, just quickly, is one of the ones that was created for the New York Times as an editorial game. The idea of this game is it simulates a bill that is proposed to go before Congress, which changes the way immigrants will be whether they will be given visas or not to come into America. And they're suggesting that if you had a uniform way of all the immigrants being judged, that it would be fairer instead of it being an arbitrary sort of way. So this game stimulates that. And the idea in the game is to basically to beat the other person with your immigrant. So what you have to do is change the kind of factors that each of the immigrants is judged against to get them into the country faster than the AI